jacket right now. But if I told you I did 17 calendars, that's 6,216 days in Illinois state prisons from 92 to 2009, you wouldn't have believed that, would you? I don't look like a criminal, a former criminal. But here's the question. What does a former criminal look like? I wear a shirt and tie 5 days a week. I promise the police hardly ever pull me over for anything. But if I came in here like this, hands hanging off my butt, the police gonna be all over me. And it's called perception. Perception is a real thing. You know, if you have me standing with a suit and tie right here, and you have another guy hanging with some jeans hanging off his butt and his hat cocked to the side, they don't want to talk to that person before they come to talk to this person. But this person may be smarter than that person is. And why do I say that? Because first off, in order to talk about rehabilitation, we got to get some myths out the way. And like I said, the first thing that formerly incarcerated people are people too. Some of them I got my college degree. I studied while I was there. I learned a whole ton of different things. I read so many books it wasn't even funny. I watched TV too, but I did more reading than I did watching TV because I had a plan. I wanted to come out and do something different. And here I am, 17 years, July 13th. I'll be home 17 years. So here, what I want to talk to you about first is identification. How many here don't have an ID? A current ID? You don't have an ID? Okay, well, I'm gonna help you get your ID and we're gonna pay for it. It doesn't matter. Let me tell you something about the ID. A lot of people take the ID for granted, but without an ID and social security card, you can't get a job. Not a real job. Yeah, you can work for a mom and pop store or some guy that's running a little business, but you don't contribute to Social Security. You don't contribute to taxes. That's not a real job. So if you work for somebody under the table, cash only, when it comes time for you to retire, you have nothing to fall back on. And that's a problem with part of our people. We work for mom and pops and places that don't collect Social Security, so then we can't retire when we become 67 years old. Don't even have a retirement or a backup plan. So this is all what rehabilitation is all about. We have to change our way of thinking. We have to think, I'm coming home, but what do I need to do to change myself? First thing what you should have did before they came home was they should have started educating themselves. But it's not too late when they come home. We as a people, everybody in here, it's your responsibility. If you know somebody that's a family member or a friend, hey Marlon, that's coming home, encourage them to go back to school. Encourage them to get their ID. Encourage them that there's a brighter future than where they've been. We're too busy just shaming one another. Oh, I don't want to mess with him. He was locked up. Ain't no telling what he did. It don't matter what he did. He's not the same person he was after he did that time. You get two types of people when you go to jail. Someone that's better and someone that's worse. There's no in between. There's absolutely no in between. But the key to making somebody better is to give we all grown up in here, right? So I'm gonna tell you like this, to give a damn about them. See, one thing about races that you never understand is that we're the only race that pulls each other down. It's like crabs in a barrel. Everybody heard the term crabs in a barrel? Well, crabs in a barrel, what they do is every time one of them thinks they're gonna get away, they pull them back down. That's what we do to our people, and that's got to change. See, we always looking for help from outside, but we need to start from within to help one another. Now, I'm not gonna get on my soapbox about helping each other. Me and him had long conversations about that. But the important thing I need you to know is that Transforming Reentry Services specializes in helping ex-offenders and anybody that's in need, whether it be homeless or whatever, in getting their IB. So what I mean by that, we get your birth certificate, your social security card, and your state ID. We can get your birth certificate anywhere in the continental United States. We also can help you get your social security card. How many people in here knew that you only allowed 10 social security cards in your lifetime? Only 10, yes.
Like the physical card?
The physical social security card. You're only allowed 10 in your lifetime. And I'll tell you something else. It's not your property. It's the property of the federal government. Take your time and read the back of it one day. If you look at your social security card, read the back of it. I don't know if I got mine in my pocket. I usually don't. Yeah, I took it out because I recently got a new ID. So it's not in my pocket. It's at home. But I used to carry it around. Of course, I don't lose my wallet. You got a chance of losing my car before I lose my wallet. Okay? But if you read the back of it, it says it's not your property. And at any time, they can request that back. So why do I talk about IDs? Because like I said, you can't get a job. You can't buy a house. You could buy a car, it'd be illegal, but you can't buy a car. There's a lot of stuff you're doing. And you talk about society and how we're not a part of society. That's because we don't do the basic things to be a part of society. We don't talk about the right things. We want to talk about hanging out with an old girl down the street. We want to talk about going to the party, going to the club. How many talk about let's go to this job fair so we can get a better job? There's 24 hours in a day. I'm here on a Saturday, my day off. When I left home, my wife and my kids were asleep. I was pissed off, but I came here because I know this is important. My wife told me last night, you don't never come home. I said, because I got work to do. I got people to try to help. Because if I don't help them, then who will? It may sound easy to get an ID, but in order to get an ID, you got to have a Social Security card, and you have the birth certificate, and you got to have proof of address. Now, that may sound easy, but guess what? 75% of our people proof of address is from the Department of Human Services, that link card, that Medicaid card. And that's one of the documents that the Secretary of State's office does not accept as proof of mail. Most of our young people, they have what you call Chime for a bank account. That's not a brick and mortar. Now, I figured out a way to get around that because Chime actually offers a bank statement that we can download, and they can use that for proof of address. So why am I telling you these things? Because there some people you right around here right now don't have a clue to how to get an ID. I guarantee you I can walk past 10 people that don't have an ID right now for various reasons. This gentleman said it's a story behind it, but he doesn't have an ID. So right now, before I forget, I need you to call me on Monday, okay? And we're going to get that straight away, okay? Anybody else know anybody that needs an ID? If you don't, okay. No, I don't work outside of Illinois. However, if they tell me where they are, I can try to help them. I'll find out what they need to do there in that state. I helped a person in Wisconsin. I go to Wisconsin, but I never even saw them until recently. Helped her husband get an ID. Yes. Oh, sure. Anybody else? You got a question? All right, so another thing I'd like to talk about is some of the other things we do as far as rehabilitation. As you all know, we have a major opioid epidemic in the west side and the south side of Chicago. Transforming Reentry Services is the only female-led, African-American-led agency that is a naloxone and Narcan hub. So what does that mean? We actually give out Narcan to agencies so that they can give it out to the people that they can come in contact to. Now, if you know what Narcan is, that's that little thing with the little nasal thing you stick in your nose when somebody's having an opioid overdose. We also train people on how to use naloxone, which is actually the needle. And you can't, let me tell you something about this stuff. The only thing it affects is the opioid overdose. Doesn't affect anything else. It just deals with just that. You basically fill up the syringe and meet side here, right here, put it in there and push it, and you wait for the person to revive. So why am I telling you? This is part of rehabilitation because a lot of us have to get our people off of the drugs so they can be rehabilitated. Because let's be honest, nobody really wants to be in a destitute situation. Nobody wants that. But time and situations cause them to be there. So why am I telling you this? Because you are all their allies. Somebody has a mother that's going through this. Somebody has a father that's going through this. Somebody has a sister and a brother or an auntie or a cousin or a friend. And what do? We walk away and not look at anything that they're going through. And I'm not telling you this to shame you, because I was guilty of it when I first came home too. I had to learn about what it meant for our people to suffer. And I've seen it firsthand many, many times. Our office is 609 South California. There's an alley right next door. Up until when we moved into that area, They were having ODs every day, every single day. Now we have a box that's on the telephone pole right there that somebody can grab Narcan on the naloxone and save a life. This is a very serious deal. We talk about reparations, we talk about rehabilitation, we talk about changing our lives. It comes with us starting to look at each other, not as enemies or as that person over there, but as family. We all grew up family somewhere. There's only 6 degrees of separation in family. 6 people to your left, one of them might be related to you. And if we treat our friends the way we treat our family, then we're in trouble. We are in trouble. And the reality is, I want y'all to understand that it's not about downplaying it or making y'all feel bad. This is a pull-up. Because in order to fix our own problems, we got to be willing to help other people also. Got to be willing. You can pick yourself up and you can be a CEO and make all this money, but if you didn't look back where you came from and say, hey, that person needs to be pulled up too, then what are you really accomplishing? Because at the end of the day, when you go home and you meet your maker, you can't take none of it with you. None of it, absolutely nothing. Now, I'm going to take a moment to open up some questions. Anybody got any questions about some of the stuff that we do at Transforming Reentry Services? Anybody have any questions? Comments? Discussions? Okay. I said that Transforming Reentry Services is a hub that gives out Narcan to different agencies, but we also give it out to the people as well. We have a van. Every time we go out, we usually go out on Madison and Springfield. Then we go out on the south side at 61st and Cottage Grove. And we go around to different events. You'll see our truck, it has TRS on it. We use 9 times out of 10, we got Narcan on there. Transforming Reentry Services. Here, let me give you my card. Transforming Reentry Services. So just a real quick question. Have I answered anybody's questions about what rehabilitation really is? Anybody have any real questions about rehabilitation? What's the question?
Okay. This is the most I've ever been in front of a mic. I want to talk about the mental health aspect of rehabilitation because, yes, I actually have a really good example of something that's going on in my life right now. So I have a friend who has recently confessed that they have an addiction problem. And, they had found their faith several years ago and had really went headfirst into their faith. And I was in support of that, everything, but they're the type of person that jumps into things headfirst immediately. And they struggled with keeping a job, but they always found work through the labor force, not through mom and pops. So recently I got off the phone with them and they told me that they quit their job. They quit their job because mentally they can't handle it. And they said that when they had spoken to the men of the church that they said, well, you got to get back out there. You got to go find a job. And he has about a month to find a new place to live. But in his mind, he says, I don't want to be suffocating anymore mentally. I can't keep bouncing around from job to job to job. And so my question is what does mental health rehabilitation look like for those with addiction coming out of, coming out of, the correctional pipeline, and then also just for minority groups in general, what would that look like?
Ooh, my God. You said 8 questions. Got a whole topic. Okay, so mental health. To us as black people, it's a myth. They don't believe in it. People are saying, I'm okay, ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm cool. But then you go and beat your wife. First thing I would say to address mental health, in this country, nothing is free. So one of the things that Transforming Reentry Services does is we assist formerly incarcerated to get health insurance. through Medicaid or Medicare, depending upon their age, so that they can reach out and get mental health. The first step in getting mental health is admitting that you have an issue. That's the very first step. You have to acknowledge that there's something going on. Because I can tell you, man, I go to this doctor, that's a wonderful doctor, and you can just sit there and talk to her, and she's wonderful, but until you believe it, there's nothing you can do about it. Because, like I said, to us as black people, we all feel like, I ain't got no problem. I can tell you my personal experience while I was gone. I didn't know how I was going to make the 17 years. Actually, it was a 35-year sentence, which I had to do 17 years of. And while I was in the Illinois River, I think I was about maybe 6 or 7 years into my bit. I decided myself that I needed to go see someone while I was there. And everybody's like, man, they're going to label you. I said, I don't care about being labeled. I care about waking up and not killing myself because I can't take this anymore. And I went for about 1.5 years weekly just to talk to a mental health counselor about how I was coping with being incarcerated. I was in Stateville, and I went to Illinois River, and I went to Dixon. While I was in Illinois River, I did that. And the reason why is because I felt the walls closing in. They were really, I get up every day. I kept a job. I learned how to play piano while I was in Stateville, so I was always in the choir and stuff like that. But mental health is a situation that we have to stop believing that it's a myth, that it doesn't exist in our population. And we have to encourage those that we know are going through stuff through positive reinforcement, that they have a situation. If they don't have medical insurance, come to our office. We'll help you get to somebody that'll help you get health insurance. Because the reality, that population that has the lowest amount of health insurance is our population. Well, yeah, we want to go get some link, but medical insurance? Nah, I don't need that. I suffered from that too for a moment. I didn't want to see a doctor for nothing in the world, and I went to a health fair last year, and the doctor saw me there and said, well, can you come see me? And I said, well, when? She said, Tuesday. I said, this is Saturday. Is there something wrong? She said, no, you need a doctor. And she's been my doctor ever since because I gained trust in her. We as a people don't trust. If we don't trust nobody, how are we going to get somebody to go talk to our problems about? Well, man, I use drugs and I don't know how to do it. Who you going to talk to like that? You got to find somebody you can trust. And the first step is you got to have some health care insurance so that you can find somebody that can help. There is no real simple answer when it comes to mental health, but you have to address the issue. Someone has to tell that brother, that sister, that cousin, hey man, come on, let's go talk to someone. Go with them. They have family counseling. But the thing, we have to be proactive. We can't just watch somebody that's having a mental health issue. Just like you said, you have a friend that's going through something. Encourage him to go and go with him. He'll respect you more because he knows you see about his greater interests. And then that means you probably look for somebody that would be more suitable for him to be able to be comfortable. Because it's a big thing to admit that maybe I have a problem mentally. You ask the average person that's walking down the street looking crazy, have you worried about your mental health? Ain't nothing wrong with me. I know y'all seen that. And I know you see it in your family members. Heck, you might be in this room and have it and not being able to admit it. Give yourself a mental health check. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Why am I always arguing with my kids? Why am I always arguing with my mother? Why does everybody seems like they got a problem with me? Maybe you need to look around and say, maybe it's me and it's not them. The reality is rehabilitation, mental health, health care, those are our responsibilities as individuals. And we have to take the time out to say, hey, let me fix what's going on with me. Because if you're going through some mental health issues, do you think it's fair to that loved one? Is that fair to that loved one, that you take out what you're going through to somebody else? Or that friend? It's just a reality. I hope I've addressed your issue somewhat.
I think you did. I have more to say, but that's just...
Well, go ahead. Well, you seem to be the only one to talk, so I'm going to let you talk.
I was just gonna also piggyback off of what you're saying to say is that I think there's also debunking within communities what a mental health crisis is, right? I have another example where I had a partner who had a mental breakdown, and I'd never been through anything like that. with somebody who believed that they were fine. And so I had reached out to a resource who had told me that basically what you have to treat it as is if though he has like a full body cast on, because the pain is not outside, it's inside. And that I have to treat it that way. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have any of the resources that I did. And so saying, you know, what do we as a community see as a mental health crisis? What degrees do we step in, and what degrees of a mental health crisis do we reach out for resources? And how do we grow those resources, you know?
Okay, so let's address to how do we help somebody. I wouldn't recommend you go up to a stranger and say, hey, you need some help. No. But what I do recommend is if it's a family member, somebody that trusts you or loves you, that you say, hey, man, I want to go over here to this counseling session, and I want you to go with me. You know, be that's Band-Aid to get them into the position of maybe this is something I can help. Also, too, for those of you that vote, you should petition your alderman and your city council to invest in mental health centers in our neighborhoods. I don't know if you noticed, but anytime you have to go somewhere like that, you have to go out of your neighborhood. It's not around the corner. It's not down the street. It's several blocks away. You get on a bus or train to get there. So, but I tell you what you can find a whole lot of dialysis clinics right in our neighborhoods. So you're more concerned about our diabetes, or our kidneys, I mean, and you're not concerned about our mental health. So you must petition the people that take care of you and the city council to say, hey, I need these facilities in our neighborhoods to address the issues that we're going through, because these are very real issues. I guarantee you, between here and your home, you're going to see somebody that has mental health that you may or may not know. But if you don't petition anybody to get some help, then it's going to be very difficult.
Hi, one of the biggest problems I see is our young black males getting caught up and killing each other. And I just wish if there was a way to heal Chicago, we held classes on Black history so they knew where they came from. Because I don't see how you could keep killing each other if you knew how hard our ancestors struggled to get to where we are.
Ooh. It is a fact that black on black crime is real. That's very real. When I was growing up as a kid, I got 2 whoopings in my life, both from my grandmother. I did not want a third. The first one was, I don't even remember. She got mad at me about something I did that I do, and she spanked me. The second one, me and my sister were fighting, and we were in a bunk bed, and she couldn't get in there because she was a buck 05, and she just couldn't handle both of us. So she wheeled that belt in, it wrapped around my head and hit me in this eye, and I forgot what we fought about to this day because of that. So why am I telling you this? It's because the way we raise our kids today is far different than when we raised them when we were growing up. And what has happened is these children no longer have what you call respect. They don't respect themselves, they don't respect others, they don't respect the police, they don't respect the teachers, they don't respect nobody. They barely respect themselves, if at all. How do you combat that? Well, I say this, crime has a cause. Not every one of them, but most of crime has a cause, and it's an economic thing. Most crimes are committed because they don't have something lacking. I'm going to go rob this person because I ain't got no money to pay for my phone bill, or I can't feed my kids, or something like that. It goes back to economics. How do you fix that? I can't tell you how to fix it today. I can tell you what you can start doing to fix it moving forward. We as parents got to start being parents and stop letting the teachers be parents, or the police department being parents, or the prisons being parents. And no matter where that child is at this time, we need to start loving them like they're our children. It starts there. It starts at home. You know, I could come up here and tell you all, well, statistically speaking, this whole generation is lost. No, they're not lost. They're lost as long as we allow them to be lost. See, a lot we used to say in the joint, yeah, I got a kid, but am I a father? I'll get to you in a second. When I was locked up, I had a girlfriend, and she had a child. He wasn't my child, but I talked to them regularly. And her son was acting up, doing all kind of stuff. She'd tell you all this stuff, and he's clowning and stuff. I said, I tell you what, let me talk to him. And I talked to him like I cared about him. And I said, I tell you what I'm gonna do. I said, you gotta understand something. You're the oldest in the house. Even though you're 12 years old, you're the oldest of your brothers and sisters. And your mother needs you. So she needs you to be a little more responsible than you have been. And he said, well, what I gotta do? I said, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. I'll make sure your mother gives you everything that she took back from you right now, tonight. But I want you to be a real young man and take care of your sisters and brother. Now, the deal is contingent to this. I said, if you mess up, I need you to put yourself on punishment. Because I'm making the deal that I'm going to change everything and change the conditions of what you're going to, but you got to be responsible for the things that you do. I said, do we have a deal? He said, well, are you sure? I said, if you agree with me today, I guarantee you that whatever your mother took for you, she's going to get back to you, and there's going to be no recourse. But you have to be responsible, and if you mess up, you got to punish yourself. She got her back on the phone. I said, give him back everything. She said, what? I said, give him back everything. We made an agreement. Things are going to change, I promise you. But you got to trust him that he's going to do what's responsible. A month and a half go by. I called, and she said, the craziest thing happened. I said, what? He got in trouble. But that's not the crazy. I said, well, what happened? He took all his games and everything, his TV and everything, and put it in the living room and said he put himself on punishment. I said, that was the agreement. How did you do that, you and that? I said, because I trusted him and I talked to him like he was a young man. I didn't treat him like he was a child and I had to mistreat him and whip him and all this other stuff. Children want direction. They want direction. And as long as they want direction, you can affect change. And even once they get in a situation, you can still guide them as a child if they trust you. And you have to build that trust. If I can do it from prison, we ain't got no excuse. We gotta talk to our children. We gotta talk to them. You wanna change how these kids doing this, what they call it, the teen takeovers? Talk to your kids, because guess what? They got a plan for them. It's called B35181. That was my number. You got plenty of numbers for them. And they don't care about what they do. They're gonna make money from them. But if we don't start defending our kids, taking care of our kids, and doing something about it, then they go through the same cycle that their fathers go through. So yeah, we must be fathers, but we also must be responsible.
Okay. So I want to say I'm having a very different experience of this assembly than I expected, but that's okay. I can synthesize from there. What I'm hearing is some different elements of rehabilitation that are possible. What maybe I'm not as much hearing in this particular presentation is just connected to this larger topic of being gathered around reparations. And maybe I gotta cup this mic because I'm getting the background. But being gathered around reparations and the relationship to rehabilitation. But there's also you've maybe clocked on like really one aspect of rehabilitation that I know that you work closely with, and I'm wondering if maybe from the folks assembled here, are there other aspects of rehabilitation that we have not talked about that might be important for us to talk about, especially if we don't connect it back to this main topic of reparations on the table. That's my discussion. Check.
Okay, fair question. So let me ask the group. Is there any particular thing that I haven't discussed in reparations, rehabilitation that you guys are interested in? Yes.
Hi, I kind of wanted to touch up on speaking of what you said, but like can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Sort of the educational aspect of rehabilitation, so rehabilitation within our education systems in terms of like how younger generations grow up, but also as how children end up developing into the world and sort of interpret their education. There's that concept, and it's an older word of like oppositional culture in terms of the way that young younger black children or black children as a whole tend to internalize the education around them against white culture. It makes them sort of resistant to what's being put forth because there's an inherent implication that they'll never be successful, and so therefore they shouldn't even try. And so, in terms of that oppositional culture that exists and what we sort of internalize as rehabilitation, that necessity of trust that you touched on, you talked about that acknowledgement and that self-advocacy. How can we sort of recreate the lens for our younger generations to develop and cultivate a rehabilitation mindset for the community? And so it sort of makes it makes it preventative, such as what you were just talking about in terms of like how do we like address team takeovers and stuff like that. Like how do and it starts with the real form of one education as rehabilitation, but like empowerment within the culture, empowerment within how we see ourselves and our self-concept, and so that also bleeds into that whole mental health aspect that you touch on as well. And so I don't know if that's like too heavy, but that's something that goes on my head.
Wow. Okay. So if I understand, you're talking about educational and how we loop that into us being normal. Is it a good way to put it? Or becoming more normal? I know I'm boiling it down real thin.
Rehabilitation in terms of our own self-concept, of our race, of our culture, like how we're sort of going against the grain in search of our own empowerment. So as a way to progress our own educations and progress, the community. Like, how do we, because
I kind of get what you're saying. So one thing I can say, education. It's a very important tool. That's the first thing. It's an extremely important tool. But we have to change our mindset of our children to think it's us versus them. That is a big problem. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. I might as well just go rob. I might as well go just pillage because I'm not worthy to do it. I can't own a business. I can't do this. I can't own a car. I can't own a house. I can't do this. I can't do that. Let me say first off, one of the first things I do with getting a person an ID is I endeavor to make sure, and I know I'm going someplace with this, to get the ID the first time. When incarcerated, the most words you'll ever hear is no. So when you come out of prison, hearing the word no and trying to get an ID, I got to make sure that you get there the first time and get that ID the first time, because if I don't, you're not coming back. So what does that do with education? We have to unlearn our children that the enemy is out there and you can't achieve anything. And I go based on my own personal experience. My mother got put out of her house a number of years ago, about 4 years ago, for a lot of different reasons. I don't have a lot of time to talk about it. But she lived in the house with me and my fiance. And she told me, "You gonna buy us a house?" And the first thing I said, "I got this big ass X on my back. I ain't buying no house. What's wrong with you?" Right there, I'm guilty of the same thing you're talking about. I can't do that. But after listening to my mama, unlearning some myths, I bought my mother a 5-bedroom house. And then that's when I realized I can do anything I want. And I've been learning that for a long time, but until it actually happens to you, then you don't want to believe that you can buy anything or do anything you want or achieve anything you want. I have an associate's degree in arts. I got a 3.815 GPA. In high school, I had a 1.9 GPA. You want to know why? Because I studied all the time, but no one told me I had dyslexia. So all the study in the world did nothing for me because nobody would help me overcome that. I had to go to prison and meet a woman named Dr. Rader. And she looked at my math test, and I took a chance and took a test. And the test was handwritten, longhand. For all you old heads, longhand. Y'all know what that is. Ain't no calculator, longhand. And I'd write it out, and it was answered. And the line was right next to it. If the answer was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'd write 1, 3, 2, 4, 5. And that happened for 80% of my tests. She saw me after class, and she said, I know why you did bad in high school. I said, how do you know that from one test? She says, you have dyslexia. And then she went on to teach me how to overcome dyslexia so I could study and learn. And I went from a 1.9 in high school to a 3.185. People used to hate when I come to class because if it was graded on the curve, I'm gonna make sure that curve is an A. Because that's what I wanted, was an A. I got 35 A's, 5 B's, and 1 conditional C because we went on lockdown. Why am I telling you this? Because I had to unlearn what put me down to keep me from going to college. A lot of our kids suffer from a lot of different things. Mental, physical, from the eyes. And if we're not getting proper health care, we don't discover these things. We don't discover them. And what do you mean about, when you say about education and how we change that, we have to encourage our kids to want to do better and show them how to be able to become better and introduce them to people that know how to achieve these goals that they want. We can't do this by ourselves. We can't change our young people by ourselves. We have to introduce them to people that mean something, that have done something, that have achieved something, to show them that they can do the same thing. And it's better if they're the same color as we are. Because we see the white folks doing it all the time, but when they see us doing it, then that changes their eyesight. It changes their perception to say, if they could do it, maybe I can. I hope that helped to address your question a little bit. Well,
I want to piggyback off. What was your name again? I'm sorry. Marwa?
did that help your question, Marlon?
I want to piggyback off of that, what you were saying, and from the sense of reparations. When I think of what I think I heard you say was that, like, for example, like standardized testing. Notoriously, Black children do worse in standardized testing because we just don't have the tools to be able to prepare for those things. And so maybe reparations looks like funding to rethink what standardized testing actually looks like, right? Like I'm butchering this, but I did a little bit of research in school and I'm trying to remember what it said. But basically, there are different types of schools that have been like popping up, like these schools that people kind of call like gentle schooling, where instead of grades, you get you're more focused on like the skill that you're building. And so as a part of that, they've eliminated standardized testing because it already puts the children that don't have that access to knowing how to take a standardized test well, it puts them at they're less likely to do well than that. And so what I would imagine rehabilitation would look like from a reparation standpoint would look like you said, unlearning what schooling is in a white lens. And so being able to look at building a skill as opposed to being able to take a test, and having teachers that look like you and are trained in like minimizing conflict. There's a word for it that I can't think of. De-conflicting. De-escalation. But these teachers that are trained to do that more than, I got to make sure that my kids can do well on this specific test. So then we can get funding to make sure that this school doesn't close down. It should be automatic that we are funded, our schools are funded fully with, I know I'm talking about them over there, but funded fully without it having to be determined by how well they do on a test through a white lens that we all know that they're not going to do well on or exceed in unless the teachers have the funds to be able to teach them properly. It's a cyclical cycle. Yes. See, community. We all do this together. Help me out. But yeah, I just want to piggyback off that because I really like what you said. I also like what you said, and I don't know. I kind of like talking in the microphone.
And next time you can do this. What I will say is this: there's no one size to fits all. There's no one thing that we can fix all our problems. Reparations can be a real thing, but it's a community-led thing. It doesn't just happen because, hey, we want it. You have to be proactive. You have to be about voting. You have to vote so you can get the person in that's going to support your ideas for education, for reparations, for health, for mental health, for all these other things. It all comes down to our voice. And I don't know if anybody's been watching TV. They're trying to snuff out our voice every chance they get. But this is the time now, if you don't know about voting, you need to get somebody and get into learning what voting is about and what's important about it. Because all these things that we're talking about in this room today, in this building, they all require somebody higher up to decide this. So I encourage everybody to vote so that you can get reparations. Thank you for listening to me. My name is Marlon Oglesby. I appreciate everything that y'all said in the comments. I hope y'all appreciated what I said. Thank you.